Shadows Beneath Midnight. Detective Adon Jameson stepped off the train onto the deserted platform, warily scanning his surroundings. A thick fog had rolled in, muting the sparse lights that struggled to pierce the gloom. An ominous stillness hung over the small town of Ravens Hollow. He hailed a lone taxi idling by the station. "Take me to the sheriff's office," he instructed the driver. As they pulled away, twisting through fog-haloed streets, Jameson peered out at dark storefronts and windows shuttered against the misty night. How long has Ravens Hollow been like this? The driver glanced back nervously. Few months now. Folks go missing one by one, vanish without trace. Then the talk of witchcraft started generations ago when the same happened before. Jameson listened pensively. Small towns kept gossip alive for centuries, yet some folktales stemmed from buried truths. He pulled out the case file on the disappearances as they arrived outside the office. Inside, Sheriff Ted Brooks greeted him grimly. "We're glad to have your help, Detective. This is beyond anything we've seen." Jameson studied the records and crime scene photos scattered across the desks. The symbols found, any idea what they mean? Intertwined spirals and crescents left at each site disturbed him more than he let on. None. Our historian thinks they align to some old prophecy, but she's been too scared to leave her home at night since her niece Evelyn went missing. Jameson decided to pay her a visit after sundown fell. Stepping outside, he paused as an unnatural chill ran through him despite the lingering summer warmth. This town hid sinister forces beneath its fog of quaint normalcy. Dark rituals were afoot, and the next full moon was only days away. He found Miss Walter's house and knocked. An ashen face peered fearfully through the doorway before letting him enter. She poured them chamomile tea with hands that refused to stop trembling. "The prophecy, it's from our village's founding centuries past. A coven was said to live in the old church ruins, practicing their devilry. But when their numbers grew too bold, God sent the signs." She recited the chilling verses that foretold 3 cycles of terror, each closing with midnight's shadows swallowing victims at the solstice full moon. "Now it's happening again, just as in my grandmother's time. Oh, Evelyn, I hope you can hold on a little longer." Jameson comforted the distraught woman before taking his leave, more determined than ever to put an end to this twisted cycle. But first he needed to explore those church ruins, hoping their long-abandoned stones held lingering clues. As night fell, he slipped stealthily through fog-draped woods toward the site marked on his map. Broken crosses rose from a sea of knee-high weeds and thorns as he approached. A sudden cry pierced the muffling silence, cutting off almost as swiftly as it began. He drew his weapon and flicked on his flashlight, muscles tensed for whatever awaited amid the ruins. But nothing stirred. The cry seemed to have come from farther into the murky woods. He would search come dawn, when visibility extended beyond his flashlight's narrow beam. For now he had seen all the ruins had to offer in their current state of disrepair. He started back toward town, cursing the dense fog that prevented him getting his bearings in these unfamiliar woods at night. A distant howl faded into the damp silence, raising the hairs on his neck. This place was indeed haunted, though perhaps not by spirits alone. Jameson awoke with a start, jolting upright in his bed at the inn. Moonlight filtered between heavy curtains as an ominous chorus of hoots and howls drifted into the silence of midnight. He ran through his notes from the previous day, searching for connections between the strange symbols and sights in hopes of pinpointing the coven's lair. One looping spiral stood out, its 7 tight turns evoked the passageways Miss Walters had described winding underneath the old church in hushed tones. He pulled out his well-worn copy of Door's illustrations and confirmed the spiral matched the cult designs associated with witchcraft covens of New England lore. There could be no doubt the ruined chapel concealed the entrance to their subterranean temple. Grabbing his torch and sidearm, Jameson slipped unseen from the inn into the streets still shrouded in dense fog. He picked his way carefully to the edge of town, senses alert for any movement within the silvery murk. At the ruins, he paused to listen for activity below before brushing aside weight brambles to reveal a crumbling marble slab. Engraved spirals matched the crime scene etching. With strength born of urgency, he managed to shift the heavy stone aside just as the first rays of moonlight breached the clouds. Steep stone stairs led into inky blackness. He descended cautiously, every subtle sound amplified in a narrow passage. The tunnel sloped gradually downwards, the rough-hewn walls closing until he could stretch out his arms and touch both sides. Ahead, flickering torchlight danced upon the low ceiling, accompanied by an otherworldly harmony of chanting raised in time with ominous drums. He crept as close as he dared, peering through an ancient iron-bound door beyond which lay their subterranean temple. Dozens of robed figures stood gathered around a raised slab upon which a young man thrashed against bindings, his muffled screams fading into a gurgle as a hooded priest swiftly slit his throat. Rage and horror coursed through Jameson's veins as hot blood spilled in rhythmic pulses onto the stone floor, rushing toward carved channels to pool in a font below. He could stand by no longer. With a shout, he kicked open the rotted door and leveled his weapon. It's over. Release the others now, or face the consequences of your actions. Yet even as rogue heads swung toward him in shock, the strangers dissolved into shadow before his eyes. Panic gripped him. Had the incense driven him mad? But he spotted a lone figure hurrying away down a side passage, clutching a bundle that cried and kicked against the confines of a Hessian sack. "Stop!" he yelled, giving chase. The robed man glanced back with a feral gleam in his eyes, red-stained ritual blade glinting in the flicker of his torch. He bolted around a corner and out of sight. Jameson cursed and followed at a sprint, praying he wasn't too late to save the captive. The tunnel twisted and turned, splitting off in countless directions till he lost sight of the kidnapper in the winding maze. Choosing a path at random, he hurried onward, strain now overtaking panic at the knowledge another innocent life depended on his swift action. The sandy floor muffled their footfalls, but he thought he caught a distant sound of weeping borne on a phantom draught. Moments later, a chamber opened before him, its towering walls hidden in shadows save for flickering sconces depicting scenes of unspeakable depravity. And at the center, slumped sobbing against a monstrous statue, was a young blonde woman he recognized from one of the case files, Evelyn Walters, alive but showing signs of horrors endured. Jameson rushed to untie her binds, gently reassuring the traumatized girl even as footsteps sounded behind him once more. He whirled, gun raised to confront the hooded man appearing in the tunnel entrance, hostage now discarded to one side with limp stillness. A hiss escaped the figure as Jameson centered his sights on where eyes glinted hungrily from within the shadowed cowl. Your interference ends here, outsider. The prophecy will be fulfilled. With inhuman speed, he lunged forward even as two shots rang out.